Hello and welcome to the Free IP Fandom. I'm your host, Felix Chaplin, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing a YouTuber that makes videos about the early history of popular music, or Origipop as he calls it. It is with great pleasure that I introduce today's guest, Adrian from Original Pop Music. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for having me.
All right, to start, you want to tell us a bit about your channel, what you do on there?
Yeah, definitely. So my channel is pretty much dedicated to sharing and introducing this style of music, this original popular music, for people who might already be aware of it. And it's to give those people a little bit more added context and background for music that they already like. And also to introduce it to people that might not yet be familiar with it.
Oh, that sounds pretty great. For one thing, I saw your video about putting on the Ritz, and you were talking about like some of the racist connotations of the original lyrics. You know, I've heard that song a million times, and I knew there are different versions of it, but I didn't know that the original lyrics were considered racist. So you taught me something there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's so much, to learn about some of this stuff. One of the, some of the videos that I really like doing are these ones where I do these sort of deep dive into some of these songs that, a lot of people know. I mean, Putting on the Ritz is one of the more popular songs from this era that people today are going to be more familiar with, than some of the other ones. Some of that's because, it was in Young Frankenstein and it was covered in the 80s, so it's got some more relation to, people today. There's a lot of background, with this, and I really like getting into that, So yeah, the background for Putting on the Ritz and looking at that. Also, I did one on, Take Me Out to the Ball Game, which again, everybody knows nowadays, but it's got a really interesting history, and Heart and Soul, which everyone kind of knows it as that piano duet, right? We hear it in Big and other movies all over the place, but it's got sort of an interesting background, as well. And, that's what I really like to do, is look at some of this music, especially the ones that we have a bit of a connection with, today, and, just get some research into the background of it and figure out, where it came from, and, just give people additional context for these songs.
All right, interesting. Do you have a background in music?
I don't have a huge background in music. I played the violin for a little bit. My dad, actually, he plays the violin, the viola. He actually makes instruments. That's his job, his profession. He makes, stringed instruments, violins, violas, specializes in, Baroque instruments. And he grew up, playing music. I heard him playing all the time, mostly classical music. He had played in orchestras in, the pit for musicals. Anytime that he had played sort of in a musical, he always kind of liked to show us, the movie versions of those musicals that he had played in. So I grew up watching, a couple of different musicals. He had played in the pit for Pirates of Penzance. So we watched, the Kevin Kline Pirates of Penzance from the 80s. He'd played in the pit for How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, a Frank Lesser musical. And so we watched, that movie. So I grew up with sort of an eclectic wide range of, these musicals. And I was sort of familiar with them there. Then when I was in college, there was a church activity that I went to once a week. And after it was over, there were a few people that would sort of stay and they'd sing some of these old songs around the piano. And I thought, well, I know some of these. So I stayed and I started singing them with those people. And, that was kind of fun. And it, introduced me to more of those songs. And I realized that there was, sort of this whole genre, really, this whole range of these songs that I didn't really know much about. And I started really getting, interested in these songs. And then I ended up one of the women that would stay and sing after. She and I started dating, and then we got married. And she had also grown up watching a bunch of old movies, including old musicals. So she introduced me to a lot of those. And I started getting into the research a little bit more when I was thinking of a Christmas present for her. And Bambi is her favorite Disney movie. And I realized that there was no songbook for Bambi that you can just sort of buy. So I went and I found, the original versions of all the songs from the movie and compiled into a songbook. And then that sort of started this trend of me, making a songbook for her for Christmas. And so then I ended up continuing that, and I did a songbook for Good News, which is a, 27 musical. And then I did one for the British comedy show Jeeves and Wooster, which had, Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry. It was from the early 90s. And they have a bunch of this old music in there. Anyways, and so I started doing these songbooks, and that led me to do a little bit more research about this music, and really exposed me to a lot of different songs and a lot of this information. And I, had compiled a lot of this information. And then I kind of thought, hey, maybe I should, share what I found with people, and the time was right recently for me to sort of start this channel. And so I started the channel, trying to sort of share all this information that I found with people that, might be interested in it.
Well, that's one of the lesser known benefits of studying old public domain music. You find love and get married.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. And to clarify, the songs that you were exposed to in the church events, those were Origipop pop songs. Like
Yeah, this was right. It was at the church event. It was after the sort of the activity was over, and there were just some people that had been, that were interested in this, and had seen some of these old musicals and things like that. And these were what I call origipop songs. And so sort of my definition, and everyone can sort of look at it their own way and everything, but I kind of view it as the music that's written between 1844 and 1964 that doesn't fall into the folk music category or the classical music category. And then later on, starting in the 1940s and 50s and things like that, that retains a lot of those older elements, especially as the new music starts coming on the scene, whether that's contemporary folk, rock and roll, country music, all of that sort of starts taking off. But there's still, a good section of, what I call original popular music being made that retains some of those older elements. And original popular music is a term that I sort of see as a big tent term. So within this genre, there's going to be, you can see jazz, and you can see blues, you can even see light music or operetta. There's this whole host of these other genres, but I think original popular music is sort of a big encompassing term that covers all of that. And it's pretty much, the music that's written in that time period. I sort of define it, in that historical time period, and has a couple of those key elements that separate it from folk and classical and then the later stuff.
Yeah, the term I usually use is Tin Pan Alley music, but, that's more starting in the 1890s, going up to the mid 1950s when rock and roll was introduced. You might want to pull up your channel to refresh your memory about this, but out of the songs that you've covered on your channel, which one is your favorite? And if you can't pick a favorite, maybe do top 3.
Right. That's a great question. Let me think. So of the videos that I've done, like I mentioned earlier, I really do enjoy the ones where I delve into the background of some of these more popular ones. So Take Me Out to the Ball Game, Heart and Soul, Putting on the Ritz. Those ones are really, really interesting because there's so much background. I also like connecting, things in our modern culture, to these songs. And so I have also enjoyed the video that I did where I looked at, all of this origipop music that's in Family Guy. This is a modern show, funny show, popular show nowadays, but there's so much of these old songs. And, that was really fun to do. And those videos are kind of fun because I can throw in a lot of clips from the shows, and that's pretty fun. So I like those ones. Oh, and another one I do along those lines is I've got sort of a series, What's That Song, where I take a look at, a specific song that's in something, that people are familiar with today. So in The Lion King, they sing, I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts. There's a reference to an old song in the very first Harry Potter book. So, I like doing that. I like connecting the modern, things that people are familiar with some of this old music that people aren't as familiar with.
Yeah, I've found that when you find these old songs being used in newer works that people are more familiar with, that usually gets more attention. And then they're like, "Whoa, I had no idea that this was this old." Like, everyone knows the Merry Melodies cartoon where the frog is singing "Hello, My Baby." Probably not as well known is but still popular is when they also had that song in Spaceballs. But people generally don't know that song was originally published in 1899.
Right.
So,
exactly. Yeah, that's a great one. In fact, I've got an upcoming video that I want to do is I want to look at the songs from that short. I think it's called One Froggy Evening. Yeah, with Michigan J. Frog. And what I'd like to do for some of these, for my video on Disneyland's Main Street and my video on G's and Worcester, I created sort of a songbook that contains the songs in there. And I'd kind of like to do that for One Froggy Evening. I'd like, he sings Hello, My Baby, and that's the most famous song that's in there. But he also sings a bunch of other origipop songs. And so I'd kind of like to create a songbook, and then I can do a video on it and I can take a look. And what's interesting is he sings the Michigan Rag, but that one's not an origipop song. That was written specifically for the short. And so I'm curious to find out as I do some research if there's a reason why they wrote that one for the short, but then for the rest of them, they went back and they got actual original songs from, years before. But that's a great one. That's a great example. And I definitely want to do a video on that one. It's really interesting. Although I feel like, that one is another one you mentioned earlier about Putting on the Ritz. That's another one that has some of the racist terms in the original song. And no, again, most people aren't aware of that. The song in its entirety is pretty much written in that sort of that black dialect that so many of those old songs were, sort of a vestige of the minstrel shows. And it's got a racial slur in there But I prefer to go through and just change those. I feel like there are, libraries, and there are usually, these are university libraries, and they have all this sheet music, and it's there, right? You can go and you can see the original versions. And if you're interested in, looking at that, you can find it. But if I was to do a songbook or something, or post it on YouTube just as a song, I would definitely go and change those words, so that they're not, because that's just, it's not appropriate. So,
well, this year, works that were made in 1928 entered the public domain. So, do you have any favorite songs from 1928 you want to throw out there?
1928, that's a good one. It was the most famous one, I think, is it's the Cole Porter song.
Let's do it.
Yep, let's do it. Let's fall in love. Yeah, that's I think the most famous one that's coming out. Although there's also Sonny Boy, and that's written by DeSilva, Brown, and Henderson. And they also wrote another one that's coming out, that came out this year, which is You're the Cream in My Coffee, which when I was making my, the songbook for my wife that was about Good News, which is a 1927 musical, with music by DeSilva, Brown, and Henderson. They've done variations of this musical throughout time, and there was a revival later on that actually took a few other songs from this songwriting trio, and they put in "You're the Cream in My Coffee," which was originally written in 1928, and I wasn't aware of it before then, but I actually really like it, and that's another one that Seth MacFarlane, who does all the Family Guy stuff, he sings a lot of these songs, and he has sung that one too. And I actually really like Seth MacFarlane's version of "You're the Cream in My Coffee." But that's a good one from 1928 that has just entered the public domain.
Yeah, some ones that I really like are "I Can't Give You Anything But Love," "Me and the Man in the Moon." That's actually my favorite one right now. I really like what's his name? He was the voice of Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio.
Cliff Edwards. Ukulele Ike. Yeah. Cliff Edwards, Ukulele Ike. Yeah.
Yeah, his version of "Me and the Man in the Moon" is my favorite. It's just so beautiful the way he sings it.
I don't know if I've heard his. That's great. I'll check it out.
Yeah, and then the B-side of that record was a song called "Good Little Bad Little You." I've been trying to find the sheet music for that one, but haven't really had any luck so far. There's this one song, I found the song on YouTube, like the original record. It's called "Since You Went Away," and I've been trying to hunt down the sheet music, but I can only find this one place where I can buy a physical copy, but I don't really have the money for that right now. "When You're Smiling, the Whole World Smiles with You."
Right, that's right. Yeah.
Another great one.
Yeah, that's great. And it's hard sometimes with, the old sheet music. There's so many that are in some of these different libraries. And it's taken me a while to figure out, which ones are good ones and what has a good source. But there are some that, you just cannot find, and sometimes you do. You have to go and buy a copy from, eBay or wherever. I've gotten, copies, sent from England and stuff before for some of this old music that just doesn't exist elsewhere. So it's great, when it is in the public domain, but it's hard when it's not terribly accessible.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with the channel Sheet Music Singer.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've had to buy some of my own sheet music, and whenever I do, I scan it and send it over to those guys so they can put it on the website. And so I've done that for the song "Oh Boy, What a Girl" from 1925. "Waiting for Katie." Oh, that's another one from 1928 that I really love. My favorite recording of that one was by Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadians. There was also, I got the sheet music for "I Fell Head Over Heels in Love." That one was great. It's very catchy. It has a kind of roll. It kind of sounds like, I would describe it as rolling, like do 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 do.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't just hoard it for myself. I make sure to share it so other public domain enthusiasts can enjoy it. That actually segues into my next question. Do you have any recommendations for resources people can use to learn more about Origipop?
Yeah. So there are a couple of really good websites that let me pull up a list here. I put it in the description of my video a few weeks ago, the video where I talk about copyright and this sort of music. In the description, I link a couple of websites that have they're almost all universities, and they've got a good digital collections. And one of them is the Lester S. Levy collection, which I think is through Johns Hopkins University, and that one's got a lot. There's also a collection, I think it's through Baylor, and they've got a good digital collection as well. There's, of course, the Library of Congress as well, which has some, but there's a good list. Those are the sort of the three I can think of off the top of my head, but I've got a good list, which includes those and maybe a couple more, in the description of my video, which was the first video I published or posted in 2024, which talked about copyright and original popular music. But those are some good websites that you can go to find some of this old music, the actual sheet music. So, they have a lot of it scanned and on there and accessible. You mentioned Sheet Music Singer. I mean, he's got a great he's a great source. And what I really enjoy about him is you can go on, you can see the sheet music, but he also has the MIDI files that you can download. So if you want to, it's public domain music. We can do what we want with it now. So you can download that and then you can, adjust it. And it just saves you the time to input it into some sort of music, notation software, since he's already got the MIDI files. So the Sheet Music Singer website's a great one. As for information on some of the history of this, that's a little bit harder. And that's, sort of what I've found. When I started the channel, I wanted to post videos once a week, and I thought that won't be too hard. And then I realized some of the research required for this is actually really time consuming. So I ended up posting a couple of, just songs, without me singing. I don't sing well enough for me to post that, but this way they're more like karaoke versions, and people can sing along to them if they want. But that was to keep me going, so I could have posts once a week. But yeah, some of the research required for some of these, looking into the background of this can be a little tricky. I usually start off on Wikipedia, but there's so many mistakes that I'll find on Wikipedia about things. So that's a little tricky. There are some good books that deal with this, the topic of original popular music. And you can try and, find them from your library and things like that. But yeah, those are some of the sort of the resources that I use.
All right. Do you have any upcoming projects that we should be looking out for?
Yeah. I'm interested. I mentioned doing a video, and a songbook for One Froggy Evening, that Merry Melodies cartoon. I'm also interested in looking at some of the non-American, original popular music, and so that's one of the reasons people sometimes call this genre, American popular music or American popular songs, and a lot of this stuff, especially the stuff that we're familiar with, is from America, but this was a style that was international. I mean, there was a huge amount that was coming out of South America, and they had that song Brazil and Tico Tico no Fuba and all that sort of stuff. There are songs that are coming out of Italy. You've got Chiri Biri Bean. You've got Because, which is sort of a light music piece that's come out of France. And then there's also a type of music that originates in China in the 1920s called Shidaikyu. And it's like a fusion of Chinese folk music and this original popular music. And it's really interesting. It sounds cool. There's, you can hear some of this music on YouTube. But I haven't found a whole lot of information about it yet. But I, want to do a little bit more research on this and look at that type of music specifically, and sort of non-American Origipop generally. So I want to do a video on that, and then I also want to do a video on female songwriters from this time. So the ones they don't. Most of these songs were written by white men and things, and I'd like to do a video looking at some of this, some of the women who wrote, and there are quite a few of them. I mean, there's Dorothy Fields; she's probably the most famous, but then there's Anne Ronald, who I really only discovered recently when I was looking up when I was researching my Disney video, Origipop, Disney music, she wrote I think the lyrics for "Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf." And there's several more. So that's another video that I'd like to do. So those are kind of the ones that I've got on the horizon there.
Yeah, when you talk about foreign songs, like the ones that came to mind for me were mainly French ones, like I'm Searching for Titina, became the nonsense song from Modern Times, Charlie Chaplin's movie.
Right.
Then there's My Man that was made famous by Fanny Brice. And the songs from the Three Penny Opera, which were originally in German. So you got like Mac the Knife and Pirate Jenny, those kinds of songs.
Right. I think those also just came out into the public domain, didn't they, just this year?
Yeah. But not the English translations of the Three Penny Opera songs. Those were made in I want to say in the 50s.
Okay, right. But the original German.
Yeah. So people who are listening and you speak German and you want to sing these songs, then go for it. Or maybe just retranslate it into English. That's all the questions that I have for you. Do you want to say, if you have any other social media that we could check out or anything?
Yeah, so I've got my YouTube channel, and then I have a Twitter account that goes along with it. I haven't posted to it recently, but I try and check it, and I know people have reached out that way. That's pretty much what I've got right now. So yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I got for you. So thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.